Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Urban Politics. I'm your humble host, Fizz Ed Music. Want to thank you all for liking and subscribing. Liking and subscribing. As soon as you have a chance, please take your cell phone over to YouTube, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. Fizz Ed Music, Urban Politics. But without further ado, I want to jump right into it like a car and drive. There's all types of tasty and delicious politics for us to sink our teeth into. First, we'll have to come to you with a heavy heart. These days, you all have heard about the mass shootings that we've had as of late, and of course the latest one is the one that went on in Uvalde, Texas, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, I just want to talk about gun violence pretty much all together because that's all you've heard in the news lately is gun violence. How do we stop it? Can we stop it? There's no end to this. Will there ever be an end to it? All of that type of stuff. So I want to talk about where we've been, where we're at, and hopefully where we're going. Or we'll see if we can figure out together where we're going. Let me go and just get right into it. Check it out. Number one, guns and gun violence. That's what's going on, right? There was a Taiwanese church in California. One person killed, 5 people wounded. And they said that the guy who did that was upset about tensions between Taiwan and China. So that was political. There were 10 people killed and 3 wounded in a Buffalo supermarket. This was by a guy who was influenced by white supremacy and Tucker Carlson pumping up that replacement theory. I talked about that on the show too, but we know that guy, also a young guy, he was motivated by this replacement theory and some of this rhetoric that he's heard from Tucker Carlson and Fox News and other outlets that are on that. And then the most recent one was the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which left 19 children and 2 adults dead. There were 19 police outside the school for 40 minutes to an hour, waiting on a technical team to go in. 19 so-called good guys with guns who did not stop one bad guy with a gun. So that TI is what a TI is. That's basically what it is. That's where we're at. D.L. Hughley, he had got a little backlash when he had said that he knew the shooter when he heard that the shooter had got killed, he knew he wasn't black. And there's something that black people echo all the time that what I'm saying, whenever the shooter is someone who's not white, they always end up getting killed. To where if the shooter is white, they're always able to subdue that person or take that person in without harming them, without hurting them. In Dylan Roof's case, taking him to Burger King for a meal before they actually take him to jail. So it's interesting how it seems like when a white person goes out and commits these atrocities, they're always treated with these kid gloves and treated with respect by the police. But then when it's somebody of color, they're usually killed. This guy, in Uvalde, Texas, he was Spanish. The children he killed were Spanish as well, but he was Spanish and he was put down, right? But it seems like he was met with people a couple of times and no one could stop him. I know somebody had met him at the door. They said that person, for whatever reason, didn't get the gun away from him or whatever. He was still able to get in the, gain access to the school through this unlocked door in the back. That TI is what a TI is. This whole thing is just it's a mess. That's what it is. It's a straight up mess. And I think that Governor Abbott needs to have his job taken. That police chief needs to have his job taken. These 19 guys who were there for 40, to an hour minutes waiting for a tactical team who let these children die, they all need to lose their jobs too. If not, get some criminal charges. They should get criminal charges, but in the least amount, they should lose their jobs. I'm always hearing about this thin blue line, right? And when black people are always getting killed by the police, what they always say, oh, this is a tough job. These guys have just one of the hardest jobs on the planet, and they risk their lives every day for the public. Well, not these 19 guys. Not these guys. What did they do? What did they do? They sat there for 45 minutes to an hour while children were dying, while they could hear gunshots. And then when concerned parents ran up and wanted to run in there themselves, and put themselves in harm's way for these children, for their children, for other children, the police stopped them, said, no, you can't do that. That's an active shooter situation, so we can't let you in the door. Really? Really? I'm not going to lie, ladies and gentlemen, and you're not going to like me for saying it, but what it sounds like to me is that those police were of the mind that, well, look, we're too afraid to go in. The last thing we're going to do is let one of you adults go in, an unarmed civilian go in there, because what if you did subdue the shooter? Then how bad does that make us look? So we'd rather these little kids die than have you go in there with no weapon and do the job that we're too afraid to do. I swear I feel that's what was going on there. Because why wouldn't you let the adults go in? Why wouldn't you let the parents go in? Okay? If they're not too afraid to do what you're supposed to do, what your job it is to do, you know, they talk about that thin blue line. You know, right. They talk about blue lives matter. If you ain't going to put your blue life on the line for this child, let their parent do it. But you don't want to let their parent do it because that makes you look like garbage. But you guys are garbage anyway because you're cowards. How could you sit out there and hear gunfire and say that you're waiting on a tactical team? Now, they're going to say the officer who was in command at that time said, well, since he's barricaded himself into a room, it's not an active shooter situation anymore. So we have to wait for this tactical team so we know what to do. That's garbage. Are you serious? 19 kids sat in there under a hail of gunfire, and you were waiting on a tactical team. The one little girl had to put her friend's blood on her and play dead on top of her so that she could get out of there alive. And she even said, all I kept thinking is, why won't they come in here and save us? Why won't they come in here and get us? The other little boy hid under a table and watched his teacher get shot to death and some other friends get shot to death while y'all waited outside. 19 good guys, so-called good guys with guns, couldn't stop one bad guy with a gun. Seriously? And in the end, it still took 4 of them to take him down. That's redonkulous. That right there blows apart that whole Republican narrative. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That's obviously bullcrap because we had all these good guys with guns and they were shook and didn't do anything and couldn't do anything, waiting on a tactical unit. Come on, man. Get that out of here. It's obvious what needs to happen. Okay, right? I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. We need comprehensive gun reform. Bipartisan legislation. That's what we need up in here, okay, right? We need to reduce access to these long guns or these assault rifles, whatever you want to call them. Some of this firepower, regular people just don't need. And we definitely don't need an 18-year-old child being able to have access to these heavy round, heavy magazine guns. That's ridiculous. In other countries, that's not going on. In other countries, they have just as many guns as we have here in America. They're not having the gun violence that we're seeing that's become commonplace. Why? Because they have gun legislation. They have common sense gun laws that stop these type of things from happening. But what's going on here in America? In America, you have this whole political party that is beholden to the NRA. This one group, the NRA, has all this money, and they give these guys and gals all this money to make sure that they move the needle not one modicum of an inch when it comes to any type of gun legislation. Why? Because they're getting paid by these people. And I've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. Some of these checks are monstrous. $38 million, $42 million, $52 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie. Somebody hit me with that kind of money. I hope I have the courage and my convictions to do the right thing too. But we already know that some of these congressmen and women do not have the courage or conviction to do the right thing. All they're thinking about is lacing their pockets with cash. And that's what they've done. So if we want to see anything happen on this, it's going to have to be us. It's going to have to be the American people getting upset, yelling out the window saying, I'm mad, I'm pissed off, I'm mad as hell, and I won't take it anymore. That's what needs to happen. I was watching TikTok, and they showed Mr. Ted Cruz. He was out at a dinner, called himself trying to eat dinner right now. There was some guy at the dinner yelling at that guy. Yelling at his security, had to escort this guy out. And he told him, you sit here and you eat dinner, and y'all failed them 19 children. Them 19 children are dead now because of you. You should have seen the faces of the people who were eating dinner with Mr. Cruz. Now, of course, Ted Cruz, he a politician. He tried to play it off like, hey, you know, it's just business. It is what it is. The people around him looked mortified, and they should be. They should be mortified that they're eating dinner with the likes of Ted Cruz, a man who would sit there and let kids die, all in the name of big profits coming from the NRA. So all of them got blood on their hands. Governor Abbott got blood on his hands. Ted Cruz, he's got blood on his hands. Beto O'Rourke trying to speak truth to power. God bless him. Now, I'm not going to lie, that guy trying to be the next governor of Texas, but if you ask me, he deserves it. Because right there, he's already doing the real job. You know what I'm saying? Of speaking truth to power. He got went right up in that press conference. Put his own, I won't say life on the line. They weren't going to, ain't going to kill Beto O'Rourke. But he definitely put his freedom on the line. Because they could have arrested him and thrown him in jail. Really, that's what he wanted, being a protest and that being an activist, to shine a light on the issue. But whatever. he said what needed to be said, and he did it in front of people. He did it in front of everybody, and he came at the man who needs to become that, Governor Abbott. Because he's like a lot of these Republican governors. They've done nothing but made it easier for people to get access to these guns, for kids to get access to these guns. So they need to be held accountable. And thank God we at least have him trying to hold people accountable. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about they say all politics is local, but let's get way out with this political thing. I want to talk about a place that's real far from here, Israel, right? And I want to talk about Israel's new brand of racism. Now, usually when you think of Israelis and Israel, what do you think of? Palestinians and how they've been battling with the Palestinians forever. You would see Israelis throwing rocks, or actually Palestinians throwing rocks at Israeli tanks, because Israel is Jewish and they got all the money, and the Palestinians don't have any money. So usually the Palestinians were the ones throwing rocks, right? But now there's the persecution of African migrants into the Holy Land. I had no idea this till I seen it on TikTok and started researching it myself. Sudanese refugees in Israel now fear deportation. And I'm probably gonna mess this up. Eritreans, Eritreans, the Eritreans also being persecuted. You know what I'm saying? So these are two groups of people who are coming out of Africa, migrating into Israel, and they getting treated like garbage. Why? Because their skin is brown. That's it. That's all they got, is because their skin is dark. All they're asking is, look, these Sudanese and Eritreans, all they're asking is that they stop, stop being persecuted. They want to stop being persecuted. They want to stop the unlawful and indefinite detention. So a lot of these people are being picked up and jailed for no reason, and then when they're jailed, they may never get out. They were saying some of these people are held up to 3 years, and then when they do get out, it's just so they can kick them back to Africa. You know what I'm saying? So they sit in jail for 3 years just to be deported at the end of that 3 years. They want to stop labeling them as infiltrators and not as asylum seekers, because that is truly what they are. They said a lot of these people are fleeing war-torn governments and societies, and just places that for whatever reason aren't operating too good in Africa, so they've migrated here, and instead of calling them asylum seekers, they have the nerve to refer to them as infiltrators. That's a big deal, because an asylum seeker, that's someone who's seeking safe haven, running away from something that's negative or disparaging to them, to where infiltrators, that makes it seem like someone who's being placed there as a plan to mess things up, or someone who's trying to quote unquote infiltrate your society and do some nefarious things or mess things up. So that terminology is a big deal, and they need to stop doing that. But they're doing that on purpose. They want to demonize these migrants because they want to get rid of them. They don't want them around, right? Respect their right to work. And how about that? They have a right to work. They said a lot of these migrants, they don't mean any ill will. They don't disrupt activity. They don't disrupt people in Israel. All they want to do is add on to Israel. They want to work. They want to get jobs. They want to pay taxes. All that good stuff. But there's something, for some reason, you know what I'm saying, Bibi Netanyahu and the rest of these Jews have a problem with these people doing that. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe you can tell me. Give me some pushback in the comments. Anyway, and that's what they want them to respect their right to work. So if you're an immigrant, you go somewhere, you're like, hey, look, I'm trying to add to your society. I'm trying to pay taxes in your country. Let me work. You know what I'm saying? I'm a human being. Let me do what I want to do. Just want to get a job and feed my family. Let me do that, right? So there's that. The focus has turned from Palestinians to African migrants. Netanyahu, Bibi, I hate Bibi Netanyahu. He gets on my nerves. First of all, he's racist as all get out. Now, before I'd even read this, I knew he was racist as all get out. If you remember a million years ago when Obama was in office, Obama didn't want him to come and speak, right? But then he comes at the request the Speaker of the House, who was Boehner at the time. Now, and that whole thing was racial right there. But I knew he would do that because Bibi Netanyahu did not respect Obama because Obama was black, and he doesn't respect black people. He doesn't like people of color. How do I know that? Netanyahu himself said if Israel is 30% African migrant, it will no longer be a Jewish state. So that right there is letting you know that he is feeling pressure from the mixing of his people with these African migrants. He like, if they come in here, they start assimilating, they get cool with us, we get cool with them, they start talking to our women, they start having babies, no longer do we have a Jewish culture. Now look, is that true? When I sit here and think about it, I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, that is true. Think about it. If African migrants come in, they start mixing with Jews, then you have something else, don't you? You have a lot of kids who are going to be, half African, half Jewish. So what would they call themselves? I don't know, but that will be what it is. But guess what? That's inevitable. You can't stop that. Some people, you know what I'm saying, who really know history and really know what's going on around here, understand that things just do this, right? It's a circle. It's not a square, it's a circle. So him sitting there and being upset about Jewish culture, not being 100% pure or becoming tainted with black folk or black culture, that's inevitable. That's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? The lady even said about America, what she said, it's a browning of this country. She said America's like a piece of toast, it's browning. That's everywhere. That's everywhere, and that's not gonna stop. But if you do your history and you know history like I know, there is a time when there was nothing but people on this planet who look like me. So, and it inevitably has to go back to that. I hate to tell people that. That's just history. That just is what it is. And I don't say that with any type of secret delight or anything like that, but that's science. That's history. That is what it is. Things do that. They don't go in a circle. They don't go in a straight line. They do go in a circle. They don't go in a square. They don't go in a straight line. Things go in a circle. And when you go in a circle, what happens? Things have to come back to that original point. And if everything and every person, or if every person on this earth at one point was a person of color, then we got to go back to what? So that's inevitable. You know what I'm saying? So here you got Bibi Netanyahu trying to fight the inevitable, like people here in America trying to fight the inevitable, the browning of this country. TI is what TI is. You cannot stop that. If anything, embrace it and be happy. Like the one sister said, who was talking about how black people, we don't want revenge, we just want equality. Be happy about that. You know what I'm saying? Be happy about that, other races. We don't want revenge, we just want equality. So if and when it does come back to a place to where there's only people of color on this planet, know that you'll still be getting treated better than you treated us, because it's not in our nature to treat you all the way that you treated us. See what I'm saying? So thank you, lucky stars, for that. Anyway, moving on, the last thing I want to talk about is kind of bringing all this stuff together. You know what I'm saying? We had all this stuff going on with gun legislation and abortion legislation and voting rights and civil rights and all of that stuff, right? Let's talk about some of the people who have been instrumental in getting us to where we're at. And where we're at is not a positive place. So who's been some of the people instrumental in getting us here? Listen, in 1981, CMP was founded. You ask yourself, what in the world is CMP? Let me hit you on game. CMP, the Council for National Policy, a group of business people, extreme religious leaders, and hardcore libertarians. Now they are DC's most influential lobbying firm. They gained popularity and influence in the Reagan years. Their goals? Check out their goals. This is what they've been wanting to do since 1981. Have they been successful? You tell me. Listen. Scale back the size of federal government. Restrict the U.S. reconstruct the U.S. Reconstruct the U.S. in a Christian fundamentalist image. Pass censorship laws against popular culture. Vote libs and progressives out of office. Bring back prayer in public schools. Fund private Christian schools with taxpayer money. Prevent gays from achieving full civil rights, and make abortion illegal. Now think about some of those things and think about how they've come to fruition just even as of late. This make abortion illegal, they're that close. They are almost, abortion is this close to being illegal everywhere you look, right? They went on a hunt going after abortion clinics. They've been closing them, like 40 going north. I've known they've been closing them crazy here in Ohio. They've been doing it all over this great nation of ours. This was one of their goals, right? It's finally coming to fruition. But this is what? 2022. They set out on this mission 1981, right? Pay attention to that. Prevent gays from achieving full civil rights. Now, there was a time under Barack Obama when gay marriage was the law of the land, right? But they're seeking to get rid of that. Now, they've already done their job on abortion. That'll be next. This same-sex marriage, that will be next. right? Interracial marriage. That will be next. They're coming after that next. So, and they've already got that on the chopping block. You can already see that trying or starting to come to fruition. Fund private Christian schools with taxpayer money. I think they're kind of doing this through charter schools. If you notice, that's why we had Betsy DeVos and all those other idiots involved in education saying that charter schools are this and charter schools are that, because Republicans have been wanting to privatize education forever, because they're all about what? Big business, and education is big business. These kids, they ain't going to get no education. They're not going to get any care. They're not going to learn anything or get any nurturing. But some big business is going to get paid because they're going to claim that they're providing all these services that they're not providing. But that's the Republican way. So they've been wanting to privatize education for a long time. Vote libs and progressive out of office. Well, come on. I mean, that is what it is. Listen, you got your AOCs, you got your Cori Bushes and all of that. But really, and I talk to my friends about this all the time. And a friend of mine who watches the show religiously, my dude, my man Rick, you know you are. It's a happy belated birthday, my friend. But look, we just were talking about that. There is no progressive wing of the party. There is no progressive party in our current politics here in America. Like I said, you got your AOCs, you got your Cori Bushes, you got people doing amazing things. You know what I'm saying? You have your, you have the squad full of them sisters, and they do their thing, and they are progressive. But we don't really have a progressive party in Washington. We don't, because even some of the stuff that they do is it's progressive, but not for real. I'm just sorry, I gotta keep it honest, man. So getting rid of progressives and libs out of office, they've done that. Passed censorship laws against popular culture. Come on now, they stay on that. And popular culture is inclusive, so that's why they want to pass these censorship laws. If they can censor things, keep things quiet, make it so that you can't even talk about transgender people in a class. Make it so that you can't even talk about gay people in a class. Make it so that you can't even talk about the atrocities that have happened to black people in a class. Can't even talk about the atrocities that have happened to women in a class. What are you doing? You're censoring these things, right? You got laws against popular culture. You have laws against information, making sure that people don't hear things. You have laws against critical race theory and things like that, something that's not even being taught, but whatever. Outlaw before people get the big idea, thinking they're going to start teaching some of this egregious and horrible history of America. You see what I'm saying? Scale back the size of the federal government. Now, that right there kind of, They were saying we have 2 million people in federal government. I agree that we need to scale that back some. Now, that's the one thing on here that I can actually agree with these folks. We do have way too many people in federal government. We could scale that back. I don't know why we need 2 million people plus involved in the federal government. We have that many people involved. Does anybody really know what's going on? Does Joe Biden really know all the ins and outs of the federal government when there's 2 million people working for it? I don't think so. So that is what it is. So that right there, I even agree with. We could definitely scale back the size of federal government. But some of this other stuff, you can see how over the years they've turned up the heat on these issues and they've gotten what they wanted. But this is just small people. This is just a small group of people. Listen, a group of business people, extreme religious leaders, and hardcore libertarians. That ain't most of America. That's a small group. But that's what happens in this country. We end up being the many that are governed by the few. You have a few people who want guns to be legal for everybody, anywhere, ever, anytime, no matter what age, whatever, So they get what they want. What? You have some people who want abortion to be illegal. They don't care if it's rape. They don't care if it's incest. They don't care what the thing is. That woman should have to have that baby, and that's just it. A small number of people want that, but for whatever reason, that becomes the law of the land, right? So that is the problem around here. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, we are definitely the many being governed by the few. And that's a problem, but that's been America too. And since 1981, this Council for National Policy has been getting in with this stuff. They've been doing their homework, because a lot of this stuff is coming to fruition. If it already hasn't come to fruition, that's because these people have been putting the hard work in there. I tell people on the other side, if you call yourself, being liberal or being Democrat, you got to work just as hard on the other side. You've seen all the steps and the moves that these people did to make sure that abortion was illegal. They showed up to these protests. They made their voices heard. They got in legislation. They put money behind that. and they were able to move the ball in that direction. If you want to move it in the opposite direction, you got to put just as much work in. You got to put just as much money in, just as much time in, just as much effort in, just as much people power in. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's coming, especially on this gun issue. A lot of people are just they're upset. You know what I'm saying, about the piss poor job that the police did reacting to it. They're upset about the fact that that's even an issue that really only goes on here in America. You know, plenty of other countries got guns and stuff, but over here, or we having all these mass shootings and they're becoming commonplace. So I think people are getting fed up, and I think you're about to see public outcry get to the point to where something's going to have to be done. But you know what I'm saying? It's not too little, too late, but it's too long coming. It's too long coming. We've been needed to do something about this. Like I said, comprehensive gun reform, bipartisan legislation. The only thing that can save a dying nation that's killing itself. It's a quote from your boy. Anyway, that is my time. This has been Urban Politics. I'm your humble host, Fizz and Music. Please, whenever you have a chance, take yourself over to YouTube, like and subscribe, Urban Politics. And as always, see you around like a donut.